hanging by one hand above a 100-foot drop, with smoke choking the air, and a woman he barely knows dangling from his other arm. Logan Hayes had exactly 3 seconds to decide which one of them would die today. If you want to see how a single choice can change everything, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The radio crackled to life at 4:47 a.m., dragging Logan Hayes out of a dream he couldn't remember. His hand shot out from under the covers, fumbling across the nightstand until his fingers found the receiver. "Hayes." His voice came out rough, still thick with sleep. "Logan, it's dispatch. We've got a situation developing at Silverwood Ridge. Fire jumped the containment line about an hour ago, winds pushing it east." Logan sat up, already reaching for the jeans draped over the chair beside his bed. Through the window, he could see the first gray hints of dawn creeping across the Montana sky. "How bad?" "Bad enough that Cal's calling everyone in. They're evacuating the valley." "I'm 10 minutes out." Logan killed the connection and stood, moving through the familiar routine of getting dressed in the dark. Thermal shirt, heavy canvas pants, boots that had seen him through 5 years of search and rescue work in these mountains. He paused at the doorway to the second bedroom, listening to the soft, steady breathing of his 7-year-old son. Jamie was sprawled across the mattress, one arm flung over his stuffed wolf, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding 15 miles away. Mrs. Chen from next door had a key. She'd done this before. Hell, she'd practically raised Jamie alongside Logan ever since Sarah died. Logan pulled out his phone and typed quickly. "Called in. Fire at Silverwood. Might be gone all day." The reply came back almost instantly. "I've got him. Be safe." Logan grabbed his gear bag from the hall closet and headed out into the pre-dawn chill. The drive to the ranger station normally took 20 minutes. Logan made it in 12, pushing his truck harder than he should have on the winding mountain roads. By the time he pulled into the gravel lot, the sky to the east had turned an ugly orange-brown, like a bruise spreading across the horizon. Cal Morrison was standing outside the operations trailer, a phone pressed to his ear and a cigarette dangling from his other hand despite the fact that he'd supposedly quit 6 months ago. He was a bear of a man, 63 years old with a gray beard and eyes that had seen too many fires, too many close calls, too many body bags. He waved Logan over the moment he stepped out of the truck. "Tell me what we're looking at," Logan said. Cal exhaled smoke and frustration in equal measure. "Contained fire, my ass." Wind shifted at 0300 and pushed it straight through the eastern perimeter. "We've got crews working the flanks, but the main front is running uphill toward the ridge." "Evacuations?" "Valley's clear. County sheriff's sweeping the access roads now." Cal's expression darkened. "But we've got a problem." Logan waited. Highway Patrol found an abandoned vehicle at the Silverwood trailhead about 20 minutes ago. Mercedes SUV, Montana plates, still warm. Driver's door was open, no sign of the owner. Something cold settled in Logan's gut. Someone went up the trail. Looks that way. In the middle of a wildfire evacuation. Yeah. Logan looked toward the mountains where smoke was beginning to pour over the ridgeline like a toxic waterfall. The Silverwood Trail wasn't a casual day hike. It was a steep, technical route that climbed nearly 3,000 feet in less than 4 miles. Even in perfect conditions, it was challenging. In the path of a wildfire, it was a death sentence. "Could be a hiker who didn't get the evacuation notice," Cal said, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. "Or someone with a death wish." Logan dropped his gear bag and started checking his equipment. Harness, rope, medical kit, water, emergency beacon. "I'm going up." "The hell you are. That fire's moving too fast. We send you in there. We're just adding to the body count." Logan kept packing. "You know damn well I'm the only one here qualified for high-angle rescue in terrain like that. If someone's up there, they're running out of time." "Logan, you going to stop me, Cal?" Their eyes met. Cal took another drag from his cigarette, then crushed it under his boot. "You've got 2 hours. If you're not back by then, I'm pulling everyone off the mountain and you're on your own." "Fair enough. And Hayes?" Cal's voice dropped. "Don't do anything stupid. Jamie needs his father." Logan didn't answer. He just slung his pack over his shoulders and started walking toward the trailhead. The hike started easy enough, a gradual climb through pine forest that smelled like Christmas and dry earth. But within 15 minutes, the smell changed. Smoke began filtering through the trees, acrid and thick, carrying with it the metallic taste of burning sap and the underlying scent of destruction. Logan picked up his pace, moving with the efficient rhythm of someone who'd spent half his life in these mountains. His father had been a ranger before him, and his grandfather before that. The Hayes family knew Silverwood Ridge the way other people knew their own backyards. But even intimate knowledge couldn't make the terrain any less brutal. The trail steepened sharply, switching back and forth across a series of rocky outcrops. Logan's thighs burned with the effort, his breathing coming harder as the elevation climbed. 20 minutes in, he hit the first drift of smoke. It rolled down the mountainside like a living thing, gray and choking. Logan pulled his bandana up over his nose and mouth, but it barely helped. His eyes watered. His lungs protested. He kept moving. The temperature was rising too. What had been a cool October morning was rapidly becoming uncomfortably warm. Through breaks in the trees, Logan could see the fire now, a wall of orange and red consuming everything in its path about 2 miles to the south. The wind was pushing it northeast, directly toward the upper reaches of the trail. Whoever was up here had maybe an hour before the flames overtook this section of the mountain, less if the wind picked up. Logan pushed harder. At the 2-mile mark, he found the first sign that someone had come this way recently, a water bottle lying in the middle of the trail. Expensive brand, still half full. Logan picked it up, noting the lack of dirt or debris on the plastic. Fresh, dropped within the last few hours. He scanned the surrounding forest. "Hello? Anyone out here?" The only answer was the distant roar of the approaching fire. Logan kept the bottle and continued climbing. The smoke was getting worse now, reducing visibility to maybe 30 feet. His radio crackled occasionally with chatter from the crews working the fire lines, but the signal was spotty this high up. 3 miles in, the trail crossed a narrow creek bed, usually running with clear mountain water, now reduced to a trickle of muddy runoff. And there, in the soft earth beside it, Logan found what he was looking for. Footprints. Small, recent, heading uphill. He knelt, studying the tracks. Running shoes, not hiking boots. Whoever this was, they weren't properly equipped. The prints showed an uneven gait too, favoring the right side. Injured, maybe. Or just exhausted. Logan straightened and cupped his hands around his mouth. "Hey, if you can hear me, make some noise. I'm search and rescue." Nothing. He waited 10 seconds, then tried again. "I'm coming to help. Stay where you are." This time he thought he heard something, a faint sound that might have been a voice, or might have been just the wind through the burning trees. It was impossible to tell. Logan started moving again, following the footprints up the increasingly steep trail. The smoke was thick enough now that he could barely see more than 20 feet ahead. His lungs felt like they were full of broken glass. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes. The footprints led him off the main trail, cutting through a dense section of pine forest toward a rocky outcrop. Logan hesitated. Going off trail in these conditions was dangerous as hell. One wrong step, one hidden drop, and he'd be the one needing rescue. But the prints were clear. Someone had gone this way. He pushed through the undergrowth, using his hands to shield his face from the low-hanging branches. The smoke was so thick here that it felt like walking through a nightmare, every shape distorted and threatening. And then, through a break in the haze, he saw her. She was sitting with her back against a boulder, one leg stretched out at an awkward angle. Even through the smoke, Logan could see the tear in her expensive athletic pants and the blood staining the fabric. Her face was streaked with ash and dirt. Her dark hair had come loose from whatever style it had been in, and there was a cut above her left eyebrow that was still bleeding sluggishly. But what struck Logan most was her expression. She wasn't crying, wasn't calling for help. She was just sitting there, perfectly still, staring at the approaching wall of fire like she was trying to calculate the exact moment it would reach her. "Ma'am?" Logan called out, moving toward her. "I'm search and rescue. I'm here to help." Her head snapped toward him, and for a moment Logan saw something flash across her face. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. Then it was gone, replaced by a mask of cool composure that seemed completely insane given the circumstances. "You need to leave," she said. Her voice was hoarse from smoke but surprisingly steady. "Get out while you still can." Logan stared at her. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm not your responsibility." She turned her attention back to the fire, which was now close enough that Logan could hear the roar of it consuming the forest. Save yourself. Yeah, that's not happening. Logan dropped his pack and knelt beside her, already assessing her injuries. The leg was definitely the biggest problem. Her ankle was swollen to twice its normal size, purple and angry looking, possibly broken. Can you stand? Didn't you hear me? I said leave. And I said that's not happening. Now, can you stand or do I need to carry you? She met his eyes, and Logan saw something fierce burning there. Pride, maybe. Or the kind of stubbornness that came from a lifetime of people doing what she told them to do. I don't need your help. Lady, in about 10 minutes, this whole mountainside is going to be on fire. So we can argue about it and die, or you can shut up and let me do my job. Your choice. Betrayal. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, incredibly, a tiny smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. You're bossy. Occupational hazard. Now come on. He slid his arm under her shoulders and started to lift. She made a sound, not quite a scream, but close, as her injured ankle shifted. Logan felt her body tense against him, every muscle locked tight against the pain. Sorry, he muttered. This is going to hurt like hell. I noticed. Despite everything, Logan found himself almost wanting to laugh. Whoever this woman was, she had guts. Stupid probably going to get them both killed guts, but guts nonetheless. He got her upright, taking most of her weight on his shoulder. She was taller than he'd initially thought, maybe 5'9", and lighter than she should be. When was the last time she'd eaten? What's your name? Logan asked, already scanning for the best route back to the trail. She hesitated, like giving him that information was somehow giving something away. Victoria. All right, Victoria. I'm Logan. We're going to walk out of here together, but I need you to tell me if you start feeling dizzy or if the pain gets too bad. Understood? I'm fine. You're definitely not fine, but we'll table that discussion for later. Logan started moving, half carrying, half dragging her through the smoke-choked forest. Every step was agony. For her, judging by the way she bit down on her lower lip hard enough to draw blood. And for him, because the weight combined with the terrain was brutal. Behind them, the fire was getting closer. Logan could feel the heat of it now, pressing against his back like a physical force. Embers were starting to fall around them, tiny orange stars that hissed and died in the damp undergrowth. They made it back to the main trail, but Logan's heart sank as he looked downhill. Smoke was billowing up from below now. The fire had jumped ahead of them, cutting off the route back to the ranger station. Problem? Victoria asked, her voice tight with pain. We can't go down. Fire's already below us. So we go up. Logan looked at her. Up takes us toward the ridge. There's nothing up there except... He stopped, an idea forming. Actually, there is something. Old fire lookout tower about a mile from here. Been abandoned for years, but the structure was steel and concrete. If we can reach it, then we have a chance. A small one. Victoria's jaw set in a hard line. Better than none. Let's move. They started uphill, and if the descent had been hard, this was nearly impossible. The trail was steep enough that Logan's legs were screaming within minutes, and he was essentially carrying Victoria's entire weight now. She'd stopped trying to use her injured leg altogether, instead hopping along beside him, one arm wrapped around his shoulders in a death grip. The smoke was worse up here. Thicker. Hot enough that breathing felt like inhaling razor blades. Logan's vision was starting to blur, whether from tears or lack of oxygen. He couldn't tell. Tell me something, Victoria said suddenly, her voice barely audible over the roar of the approaching flames. What? Why'd you come up here? You had to know it was a suicide mission. Logan adjusted his grip on her, pulling her closer as they navigated around a fallen log. It's my job. Bullshit. I saw your eyes when you found me. This isn't about a job. He was quiet for a moment, focusing on placing one foot in front of the other. Then, I lost someone once because I wasn't fast enough. Decided I'd never let that happen again. Your wife? The question hit harder than it should have. How did you... Wedding ring. Worn edge like you've been wearing it for years, but the gold is still bright. You don't work with your hands much, so it's not workwear. And you have this look. She trailed off, breathing hard. Sorry, none of my business. Sarah died 3 years ago, Logan heard himself say. Car accident. I was at a training exercise in Wyoming. By the time I got the call and made it back, he shook his head. Anyway, that's why I do this. Because maybe if I save enough people, it'll balance out the one I couldn't. Victoria was quiet for a long time, then, "That's not how it works." "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." They pushed on, the conversation dying as both of them focused all their energy on just moving forward. The heat was intense now. Logan's exposed skin felt like it was blistering. His throat was raw. His eyes were streaming tears that did nothing to clear his vision. But through the smoke, he could see it. The skeletal outline of the fire tower rising up from the rocky summit like a beacon. "There," he gasped, pointing. "We're almost—" The explosion came without warning. A massive pine tree, already weakened by the fire, gave way with a crack like a rifle shot. It fell directly across their path, hitting the ground so hard that Logan felt the impact through his boots. Sparks and embers erupted from the collision, showering them with burning debris. Logan threw himself forward, covering Victoria's body with his own as the burning fragments rained down. He felt something hot sear across his shoulder, smelled the acrid stench of singed fabric and hair. When the worst of it had passed, he pulled back, checking Victoria for injuries. "You okay?" She nodded, but her face had gone pale, her breathing shallow and rapid. Shock, probably. The adrenaline that had been keeping her going was starting to fail. "Stay with me," Logan said, gripping her shoulder. "We're too close to quit now." "I don't quit," she managed, but her words were slurring. Logan swore under his breath. They were out of time. He did the only thing he could. He swept Victoria up in his arms, ignoring her weak protest, and started running. Running uphill with 130 pounds of dead weight, while smoke filled your lungs and flames licked at your heels, wasn't something they taught in search and rescue training. It was pure instinct, pure desperation, fueled by the image of Jamie's face and the promise Logan had made to himself 3 years ago that he wouldn't let anyone else die on his watch. His legs were on fire. His lungs were collapsing. His vision was narrowing to a tunnel. But the tower was right there, 50 feet, 40, 30. He hit the metal ladder at full speed, nearly losing his grip. Victoria stirred in his arms, trying to help, but she was too weak. Logan started climbing one-handed, the other arm locked around her waist, pulling them both up rung by rung by rung. The fire reached the base of the tower just as Logan hauled them both onto the observation platform. He kicked the ladder away, pointless probably, but it made him feel better, and dragged Victoria to the center of the platform, as far from the edges as possible. Then he collapsed beside her, his entire body shaking with exhaustion and oxygen deprivation. Below them, the world was ending. The fire had become a living storm, consuming everything in its path. Trees exploded from the heat. The air itself seemed to be burning. The roar was deafening, drowning out everything else. Logan lay on his back, staring up at the smoke-choked sky, and wondered if they'd just traded a quick death for a slow one. The tower was steel and concrete, but the heat alone might kill them, or the smoke, or— Logan. He turned his head. Victoria was looking at him, her face streaked with ash and blood, and tears she probably didn't even realize she was crying. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not leaving me." Logan wanted to say something heroic, something that would make this moment less terrifying, but he was too tired, too scared, too honest. "Thank me when we're off this mountain." She smiled. A real smile this time, small and sad and somehow beautiful despite everything. "Deal." They lay there together as the fire raged around them, two strangers who'd found each other at the end of the world, and waited to see if the dawn would bring rescue or just a different kind of darkness. The metal platform beneath them was heating up, conducting warmth from the inferno below. Logan could feel it through his jacket, a constant reminder that they weren't safe, not even close. He forced himself to sit up, taking stock of their situation with what was left of his ability to think clearly. The observation platform was maybe 10 feet square, with waist-high railings on all sides and a small enclosed booth at the back that had probably once housed radio equipment and emergency supplies. Logan crawled over to it, every movement an effort, and tried the door. Locked. He threw his shoulder against it once, twice. On the third try, the rusted hinges gave way and the door crashed inward. Inside, he found exactly what he'd hoped for, emergency supplies that someone had left here decades ago, and never bothered to remove. A first aid kit, emergency blankets, a few bottles of water, probably undrinkable by now, but better than nothing. And thank every higher power that might be listening, an old emergency beacon. Logan grabbed it and crawled back out to Victoria, who was watching him with glassy eyes, definitely going into shock. He needed to keep her talking, keep her conscious. "Hey," he said, kneeling beside her. "Stay with me. I need to look at that ankle." "It's fine." "It's absolutely not fine." Gently, as carefully as he could, Logan eased off her running shoe. She made a sound between a gasp and a sob, her hands fisting in the fabric of her torn pants. The ankle underneath was a mess, swollen, discolored, and bent at an angle that made Logan's stomach turn. Definitely broken. Possibly a compound fracture, though at least the bone wasn't protruding. Small mercies. He dug through the first aid kit, found some ancient elastic bandages, and started wrapping the ankle to stabilize it. Victoria watched him work, her breathing harsh and uneven. "You're good at this," she said after a moment. "Had a lot of practice." Logan finished securing the bandage and sat back. "This is going to hurt like hell for a while, but the wrap should keep it immobile until we can get you to a hospital. If we get off this mountain." "When?" Logan corrected. He pulled out the emergency beacon and flipped the switch. A small red light blinked to life. "I just activated our ticket out of here. Someone will pick up the signal." "What? Sorry." Victoria looked at the device, then at the wall of fire surrounding them, then back at Logan. "You really believe that?" "I have to." She studied him for a long moment, and Logan had the uncomfortable feeling of being dissected by someone who was very, very good at reading people. "You have a kid," she said finally. It wasn't a question. "How did you—" "The way you checked your phone before putting it in the waterproof pouch. The fact that you came up here at all when you knew it was basically impossible. You have someone waiting for you." Logan pulled out his phone, miraculously still intact, and showed her the lock screen. Jamie, age 7, missing his 2 front teeth, grinning like Christmas had come early. "His name's Jamie." Something shifted in Victoria's expression, a crack in the armor she'd been wearing. "He's beautiful." "What?" "He's a pain in the ass, smart as hell and knows it. Wants to be a paleontologist this week. Last week it was an astronaut." Logan put the phone away, surprised by how much it hurt to look at that picture right now. His mom would have loved to see him grow up. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." Logan looked out at the burning forest, trying not to think about the possibility that Jamie might lose both parents. "What about you? Somebody waiting for you down there?" "Oh, tsh, was." Victoria's laugh was bitter. "I have about 3,000 employees, a dozen board members, and a handful of people who might notice I'm gone long enough to worry about the stock price. But someone actually waiting for me? No." There was a story there Logan could tell. Pain and loneliness wrapped up in expensive clothes, and the kind of confidence that came from ruling your own empire. He wanted to ask, but the smoke was getting worse again, making both of them cough. "We need to conserve our energy," Logan said, though talking to her was the only thing keeping his mind off their situation. "Try to keep your breathing shallow and even." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the apocalypse rage around them. The heat was intense, the metal platform beneath them almost too hot to touch. Logan pulled out the emergency blankets, metallic sheets that looked like they'd been through hell but might still provide some protection, and draped one over Victoria's shoulders, keeping one for himself. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after a while, her voice barely above a whisper. "Shoot. Why were you really up here? On this mountain specifically?" Logan frowned. "What do you mean? You needed help?" "No, I mean, your car was already at the ranger station when I drove past it yesterday. You were working the fire before you even knew I was up here." She paused, gathering strength to continue. "And you knew about this tower. You've been here before." She was sharp, too sharp. Logan looked away, out at the flames. "This was Sarah's favorite trail. We used to come up here when we were dating, before Jamie was born. Just the two of us. A tent, and a bottle of cheap wine. We'd camp up by the ridge and watch the stars. And you still come back. Sometimes. When I need to think, or when I need to remember why I keep going." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Guess the mountain decided to return the favor today. Victoria reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold despite the heat, trembling slightly. We're going to get off this mountain, Logan Hayes. I didn't survive the last 3 hours just to die up here. What were you doing up here anyway? Logan asked, squeezing her hand. Nobody hikes Silverwood in October without a damn good reason. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, running. From what? Everything. She pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself despite the heat. I'm the CEO of Hale Enterprises. $1 billion company, offices in 12 countries, more money than I'll ever spend. And I'm so goddamn tired of it all that I came up here to prove I could exist without any of it. Stupid, right? Not stupid, just human. I was supposed to be meeting with land surveyors this morning. Big development project up on the ridge. Luxury resort, high-end condos, the whole thing. But the survey data kept coming back wrong. Routes that should have been marked safe showed unstable ground. Access roads that should have been clear were blocked. I thought it was incompetence at first. Logan felt his gut tighten. But it wasn't. Marcus Reeves, my business partner, was feeding the surveyors false data. He wanted the project to fail so he could buy out my shares at a discount when the company took the hit. I found proof 2 days ago. Emails, payment records, everything. I was going to confront him this morning, but she gestured at the burning forest. I guess he decided to solve the problem more permanently. You think he started the fire? I think he made sure I'd be up here when it happened. The trail was his suggestion. The timing was his idea. And now here we are. Logan's hands clenched into fists. That's attempted murder. That's business, apparently. Victoria's eyes were hard now, the vulnerability from a moment ago locked away again. But I have evidence. It's in my car, in a waterproof case hidden in the spare tire well. If we get off this mountain, Marcus is finished. When we get off, Logan corrected again. And yeah, he's definitely finished. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. The fire raged on, sometimes seeming to die down only to roar back to life minutes later. The smoke never let up, a constant choking presence that made every breath a struggle. Logan rationed out the water he'd found, making Victoria drink more than him despite her protests. They talked in bits and pieces, sharing fragments of their lives and the surreal intimacy that came from facing death together. Victoria told him about growing up as the only child of a business mogul who saw her as a successor rather than a daughter. About building her own company from the ground up, proving she could do it without his help, and then watching as the empire she'd built became a prison. Logan told her about meeting Sarah in college, about how they'd been complete opposites, her all art and dreams, him all practical plans and steady routines, and how somehow it had worked perfectly until it didn't. About raising Jamie alone, trying to be both parents, and constantly feeling like he was failing at both roles. You're not failing, Victoria said at one point, her voice thick with exhaustion. Jamie's lucky to have you. Tell me that when he's 16 and I'm trying to explain why he can't go to some party. She smiled, and Logan realized he was starting to recognize her expressions, the tiny tells that showed when she was in pain or scared or just pretending to be okay. It was strange, this forced intimacy with a stranger, but also somehow right. As dawn approached, or what passed for dawn through the smoke-filled sky, Logan noticed something. The roar of the fire was changing, becoming less intense. The heat was still brutal, but it wasn't getting worse. He crawled to the edge of the platform and looked down. The fire was moving past them, not extinguished, not even close, but the main front had pushed beyond the tower, continuing its march northeast. They were surrounded by smoking ruins now, instead of active flames. Still deadly, still hot enough to kill, but survivable if they were careful. Victoria, Logan said, crawling back to her. We might be able to move soon. Well, she was shivering despite the heat, her face gray with pain and exhaustion. The shock was getting worse. Logan knew they needed to get her medical attention soon, or the ankle would be the least of her problems. His radio crackled, startling them both. Logan grabbed it, his heart racing. Anyone copy? This is Rescue Bird Alpha 7, searching for emergency beacon signal. If anyone can hear this, respond. Logan's hand shook as he brought the radio to his mouth. Alpha 7, this is Logan Hayes, search and rescue. I copy you. I have one civilian injured, fire tower location, Silverwood Ridge. Static. Then, Hayes, Jesus man, we thought you were dead. Stand by, we're vectoring to your location. Logan closed his eyes, feeling something break loose in his chest. Relief so intense it was almost painful. Copy that, standing by. He looked at Victoria, who was watching him with eyes that had seen too much in the past 12 hours. We're getting out of here. She nodded, but didn't smile. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she knew, like Logan did, that getting off the mountain was only the beginning. That whatever happened next, the investigation, the confrontation with Reeves, the aftermath of trauma, would be its own kind of fire to walk through. But for now, they were alive. And sometimes that was enough. The rescue helicopter appeared through the smoke like a mechanical angel, its rotors beating the air into submission. Logan stood and waved, making himself visible on the platform. The pilot circled once, assessing the situation, then brought the bird into a hover about 20 feet above them. A rescue basket lowered on a cable, spinning slightly in the rotor wash. Logan grabbed it as soon as it was within reach, stabilizing it against the platform railing. You first, he told Victoria. Don't be stupid. You're trained for this. And you're injured and going into shock. Get in the basket. For once, she didn't argue. Maybe because she knew he was right, or maybe because she simply didn't have the energy left to fight. Logan helped her into the basket, being as gentle as he could with her broken ankle. She bit down on her lip, but didn't make a sound. See you at the bottom, Logan said. Victoria grabbed his hand, holding it tight for a moment. Don't you dare stay up here playing hero. I didn't survive all this just to have you die being noble. Yes, ma'am. He signaled to the crew above, and the basket began to rise. Logan watched until Victoria disappeared into the helicopter, then stepped back and waited for the basket to return. His legs were shaking with exhaustion. His lungs felt like they'd been scoured with steel wool, and every part of his body hurt. But he'd done it. They'd both survived. The basket came back down. Logan climbed in, secured himself, and gave the signal. As he rose into the air, he looked down at the fire tower one last time, the place where he and Victoria had made their stand against an inferno. Then he looked out at the burning forest, the devastation stretching for miles in every direction, so much destruction, so much loss. But also, somehow, the beginning of something new. The helicopter crew pulled him inside, wrapping him in a thermal blanket and checking his vitals. Logan let them work, his eyes finding Victoria where she lay strapped to a gurney. She was conscious, alert, watching him with an intensity that felt like a question. Logan didn't have an answer yet, but as the helicopter banked away from Silverwood Ridge, leaving the fire behind, he thought maybe they'd figure it out together. The hospital in Whitefish was small, functional, and smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. Logan sat in the waiting room with a blanket around his shoulders and an oxygen mask dangling from his hand, watching through the window as EMTs wheeled Victoria's gurney through the emergency entrance. A nurse had tried to make him lie down 3 times already. He'd ignored her all 3 times. Cal showed up 20 minutes later, still wearing the same clothes from the morning, still smelling like smoke and stress. He dropped into the chair beside Logan without a word, just sat there staring at the scuffed linoleum floor. They're saying it's the worst wildfire in Montana in 15 years, Cal said finally. 40,000 acres and counting. 3 structures lost. No fatalities, thanks to you. Thanks to dumb luck. Okay. Don't do that. Cal's voice was sharp. Don't minimize what you did up there. You saved that woman's life. Logan didn't answer. He was thinking about the moment on the fire tower when he'd looked at Victoria and realized he didn't even know her last name. Didn't know anything about her except that she'd faced down death with more composure than most people showed ordering coffee. The Mercedes at the trailhead is registered to Victoria Hale, Cal continued, like he'd read Logan's mind. CEO of Hale Enterprises. You pulled a billionaire off that mountain, Hayes. She didn't seem like a billionaire. Yeah, well, money doesn't matter much when you're about to burn to death. Cal pulled out his phone, scrolled for a moment, then showed Logan the screen. This is her. It was a professional headshot. Victoria in a sharp black suit, hair pulled back severely, expression cool and controlled. She looked like someone who could buy and sell companies before breakfast. Nothing like the woman who'd gripped his hand on the fire tower and thanked him for not leaving her. She's been all over the news for the past 6 months, Cal said. Big development deal up on Silverwood Ridge. Some kind of luxury resort. There were protests, environmental concerns, the whole 9 yards. Project's been delayed twice already. Logan thought about what Victoria had told him on the tower. About Marcus Reeves and false survey data and a fire that was just a little too convenient. Cal, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Victoria's car. There's evidence in it, documents that prove someone sabotaged her project. I need you to make sure nothing happens to that vehicle before the police can secure it. Cal's eyebrows went up. You think this fire wasn't an accident? I think it's worth investigating. For a long moment, Cal just looked at him. Then he nodded slowly. I'll make some calls, but Hayes, if this turns into something criminal, you're going to need to give a statement. Everything you saw, everything she told you. I know. A doctor emerged from the emergency wing, looking tired and rumpled. Logan stood immediately, the blanket falling to the floor. Mr. Hayes? I'm Dr. Patterson. You can see Ms. Hale now, but keep it brief. She needs rest. Bar si ar sagit. Logan followed the doctor down a hallway that seemed too bright after the smoke-filled darkness of the mountain. They stopped at a room near the end, and Dr. Patterson pushed the door open. Victoria was propped up in bed, her leg elevated and wrapped in a temporary cast, an IV line running into her arm. Someone had cleaned the ash and blood from her face, and without the grime of survival, Logan could see the sharp intelligence in her features, the exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes. 10 minutes, Dr. Patterson said, and left them alone. Victoria watched Logan approach the bed, her expression unreadable. You look terrible. You should see yourself. Logan pulled a chair over and sat down, suddenly aware of how bone-tired he was. How's the ankle? Broken in 2 places. They're scheduling surgery for tomorrow morning. She shifted slightly, wincing. The doctor said if you hadn't stabilized it when you did, I might have lost the foot. Good thing I'm bossy then. That got a small smile. Good thing. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling between them. Logan had spent 12 hours with this woman, had carried her through fire and smoke, had learned things about her that he suspected very few people knew. And now, in the sterile normalcy of a hospital room, he had no idea what to say. Victoria broke the silence first. They found my car. The police called while you were in the waiting room. They recovered the evidence. That's good, Moshasal. Marcus doesn't know yet. He thinks I'm dead. Her voice was flat, emotionless. There's already been a statement from Hale Enterprises expressing condolences to my family and assuring shareholders that the company will continue operations without interruption. Logan felt anger flare in his chest. He didn't waste any time. No, he never does. Victoria looked at her hands, at the IV line taped to her skin. I built that company from nothing, Logan. Spent 15 years turning it into something that mattered, and he was willing to kill me for it. He's not going to get away with it. Maybe, maybe not. Men like Marcus have lawyers, connections, ways of making problems disappear. She looked up, meeting his eyes. But I'm not going to make it easy for him. There was steel in her voice now, the same fierce determination Logan had seen on the mountain. He found himself wanting to help her, to stand beside her while she fought this battle, which was insane because he barely knew her, and she lived in a world so far removed from his that they might as well be on different planets. You should get some rest, Logan said, standing. I'll check on you tomorrow, after your surgery. You don't have to do that. I know, but I'm going to anyway. Ma. Victoria reached out and caught his hand before he could step away. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone who'd just been through hell. Thank you, Logan, for everything. You already thanked me. On the mountain. That was for saving my life. This is for treating me like a person instead of a balance sheet. She released his hand, settling back against the pillows. Not many people do that. Logan wanted to say something meaningful, something that would acknowledge the strange connection they'd formed in those hours on the mountain. But his phone buzzed in his pocket, and when he pulled it out, he saw Mrs. Chen's name on the screen. I have to take this, he said apologetically. Victoria nodded. Go. Be with your son. Logan stepped into the hallway and answered the call. Mrs. Chen? Ma. Logan, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Jamie's been asking about you all day. I told him you were working, but he's getting worried. Guilt hit Logan like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on Victoria, on the fire, on just surviving, that he'd barely thought about how this would affect Jamie. I'm sorry, I should have called sooner. Is he okay? He's fine, just worried. Do you want to talk to him? Yeah, put him on. Yee. There was a rustling sound. Then Jamie's voice, small and scared in a way that made Logan's chest ache. Dad? Hey, buddy, I'm okay. Mrs. Chen said there was a big fire. She said you had to rescue someone. That's right, but I'm safe now. I'm at the hospital getting checked out, and then I'll be home. Bullshit, boss. You promise? Logan closed his eyes, leaning against the wall. I promise, Jamie. I'll be home tonight, and we'll have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow. The really good kind with chocolate chips. Okay. Jamie's voice was still shaky, but less scared. I love you, Dad. Love you too, kiddo. More than anything. Okay. Logan ended the call and just stood there for a moment, letting the reality of his life settle back over him. He had responsibilities. A son who needed him. A job that didn't include getting involved in corporate conspiracies and attempted murder cases. He should walk away from Victoria Hale and her billion-dollar problems. Let the police handle it. Let her handle it. Go back to his small life in his small town and pretend the past 12 hours had been just another rescue. But when he looked back through the window of Victoria's room and saw her lying there alone, staring at the ceiling with an expression of profound isolation, Logan knew he wasn't going to walk away. Not yet. The next morning, Logan kept his promise to Jamie, chocolate chip pancakes and a long explanation about fire safety that his son tolerated with 7-year-old patience. Then he drove back to Whitefish, telling himself he was just checking on a rescue victim, doing his due diligence, making sure she was okay. He was a terrible liar, even to himself. Victoria's room was different in daylight, less stark, more real. She was awake, watching the news on the small TV mounted to the wall. Logan knocked on the door frame, and she looked over, surprise flickering across her face. You came back. Said I would. Logan held up a paper bag. Brought coffee. Hospital stuff tastes like battery acid. You're not wrong. Victoria accepted the cup he handed her, taking a careful sip. Her eyes closed briefly in appreciation. Real coffee. You're a lifesaver. Again. It's becoming a habit. Logan sat down in the visitor's chair, nodding at the TV. Anything interesting? What? They're calling it the Silverwood Fire. 46,000 acres now. Still burning, but they've got containment lines holding. She muted the TV. They're also reporting that I'm missing and presumed dead. Marcus gave a very touching interview about what a tragic loss this is for the business community. He's going to be real surprised when you show up alive. That's the plan. Victoria's expression hardened. The police are coming this afternoon to take my statement. I'm going to tell them everything. About Marcus, the sabotage surveys, the timing of the fire. But my lawyer says it's going to be hard to prove without more evidence. You have the documents from your car, which prove he manipulated the survey data, but not that he started the fire or knew I'd be on that mountain when it happened. He's smart enough to have kept those communications off the record. Logan thought about this. What about the fire itself? Do they know what started it? They're still investigating the origin point. Could be lightning strike. Could be human error. Could be deliberate. Won't know for a few days at least. But you think it was deliberate? I think Marcus is a calculating bastard who saw an opportunity and took it. Whether he lit the match himself or just made sure I'd be in the right place at the right time. Victoria shrugged, then winced as the movement pulled at her injuries. Either way, he wanted me dead. The door opened and a woman in an expensive gray suit walked in, carrying a briefcase and an expression of profound relief. Victoria, thank God. When I heard you'd been found, she stopped, noticing Logan. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had company. This is Logan Hayes. He's the one who pulled me off the mountain. Victoria gestured to the woman. Logan, this is Patricia Chen, my attorney. Logan stood, shaking Patricia's hand and trying not to laugh at the coincidence of the shared last name with his neighbor. I should go. Let you two talk. Actually, Patricia said, settling into the other visitor's chair, I'd like you to stay, Mr. Hayes. If Victoria's account of events is accurate, you're a critical witness to several elements of this case. So Logan stayed, listening as Victoria recounted everything that had happened on the mountain. She was precise, methodical, leaving nothing out. When she got to the part about Marcus's betrayal, her voice never wavered, but Logan saw the way her hands clenched the blanket. Patricia took notes, asked clarifying questions, and generally looked like someone preparing for war. When Victoria finished, the attorney sat back and tapped her pen against her notepad. It's thin, she said bluntly. The survey manipulation is solid, and we can prove Marcus acted against the company's interests. But attempted murder? That's going to be nearly impossible without concrete evidence that he started the fire or deliberately lured you into its path. So he gets away with it, Victoria said flatly. I didn't say that. I said murder will be hard to prove, but fraud, corporate malfeasance, breach of fiduciary duty. Those we can make stick. Patricia leaned forward. Victoria, I know you want justice, but sometimes the best revenge is staying alive and taking back what's yours. Logan watched Victoria process this, saw the moment she shifted from victim seeking vengeance to CEO, planning a hostile takeover. It was like watching someone put on armor. Then that's what we'll do, Victoria said. How quickly can we move? The police interview is this afternoon. After that, I'll file an emergency injunction freezing Marcus's shares and voting rights pending investigation. We'll call an emergency board meeting, present the evidence of his fraud, and force him out before he can consolidate power. He'll fight back. Let him try. By the time we're done, he'll be lucky if he's not criminally indicted. Patricia stood, gathering her things. Get some rest. You're going to need your strength for what comes next. After Patricia left, Logan and Victoria sat in silence. The room felt smaller now, more intimate. Logan was acutely aware that he was sitting beside a woman who was about to go to war with a man who'd tried to kill her, and he had no business being anywhere near that battlefield. You should get out while you can, Victoria said, like she'd read his mind again. This is going to get ugly, and you've got a kid to think about. Jamie's safe. And I've given my statement to the police. I'm already involved. That's different from staying involved. She turned to look at him directly. Logan, I appreciate everything you've done, more than I can say. But my world, it's not kind to good people. Marcus won't hesitate to go after anyone close to me if he thinks it'll give him an advantage. Is that what we are? Close? The question hung between them. The question hung, too big and too complicated for a hospital room on a Tuesday morning. Victoria looked away first, her jaw tight. I don't know what we are, she admitted, but I know I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Logan stood, shoving his hands in his pockets. That's my choice to make, not yours. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you've got a 7-year-old son who needs his father. What happens if Marcus decides you're a threat? What happens if... Then I deal with it. Same way I deal with everything else. Logan moved to the window, looking out at the parking lot below. Look, I'm not stupid. I know we come from different worlds. You've got billions in board meetings, and I've got a mortgage and a kid who wants to be a dinosaur hunter. But what happened on that mountain, that was real. And I'm not going to pretend it wasn't just because it's complicated. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When Logan looked back at her, he saw something vulnerable in her expression, something that reminded him of the woman who'd sat with him on the fire tower waiting to die. I haven't had something real in a very long time, she said softly. I'm not sure I remember how. Then we'll figure it out together. Logan returned to the chair, sitting down. But first you need to survive surgery and take down a corrupt business partner. Think you can handle that? Despite everything, Victoria smiled. I've handled worse. Yeah, you have. The surgery went well. Logan knew this because he'd waited in the hospital for 6 hours until doctor. Patterson came out and told him Victoria was in recovery. He knew he should leave, should go home to Jamie, should stop getting more entangled in something that was bound to end badly. Instead, he stayed. When they finally let him see her, Victoria was groggy from anesthesia, her leg now in a proper cast that went from her toes to just below her knee. She blinked at him slowly. trying to focus. "You're still here," she mumbled. "Apparently I'm stubborn. It's one of your better qualities." Her words were slurred, and Logan realized she was more out of it than he'd thought. "You know what else is a good quality?" "What?" "Your face. You have a really good face. Strong, honest, like someone carved it out of... She frowned, struggling for the word. "Mountain." Logan couldn't help but smile. "You're high on painkillers. Doesn't make it not true." Victoria's eyes were drifting closed. "Logan? Yeah? Don't leave, okay? Just for a little while. Don't leave." Something in Logan's chest cracked open at the raw need in her voice. "I'm not going anywhere." He stayed until she fell asleep, watching the slow rise and fall of her breathing, and wondered what the hell he was doing. Getting involved with Victoria Hale was a complication he didn't need. She was temporary, a rescue, nothing more. Once she recovered and went back to her life, he'd be a footnote in a story she told at dinner parties. But then her hand twitched in her sleep, reaching out like she was looking for something to hold on to, and Logan found himself taking it, holding on, and deciding that maybe some complications were worth it. 2 days later, Victoria was transferred to a private room with a view of the mountains. The Silverwood fire was 60% contained, the immediate danger past. Marcus Reeves had held a press conference announcing himself as interim CEO of Hale Enterprises, expressing deep sorrow over Victoria's tragic death, while also outlining his vision for the company's future. Victoria had watched the whole thing from her hospital bed, her expression glacial. "He's already moving forward with the Silverwood project," she said, muting the TV. "Modified plans, different approach, but same location. He's going to use my death to push through everything I was blocking." Logan, who'd become a semi-permanent fixture in her room over the past 48 hours, frowned. "Can he do that?" "The board has to approve any major projects, but with me gone and Marcus controlling my shares through some legal loophole Patricia's still untangling, he's got the votes." Victoria's hands clenched into fists. "He's dismantling everything I built. Then we hit back. Patricia said she's ready to file the injunction." "She is. But Logan..." Victoria turned to face him, and he saw fear there beneath the anger. "Once we do this, there's no taking it back. Marcus will know I'm alive, will know I'm coming for him, and he's not going to just roll over." "Good. Neither are you." Victoria smiled, but it was sharp-edged and dangerous. "No, I'm really not." The police came that afternoon, 2 detectives who asked careful questions and took detailed notes. Logan gave his statement separately, corroborating Victoria's timeline and describing everything he'd seen on the mountain. When they asked if he thought the fire was deliberately set, he told them honestly that he didn't know. But the timing was suspicious as hell. After the detectives left, Patricia arrived with a stack of legal documents and a plan of attack that made Logan's head spin. Within hours, the injunction was filed, Marcus's shares were frozen, and an emergency board meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. The story broke that evening. Victoria Hale, presumed dead in the Silverwood fire, was actually alive and accusing her business partner of attempted murder. The media went insane. Logan watched from Victoria's hospital room as news crews set up camp outside, as reporters tried to bribe nurses for information, as the story spread across every news outlet in the state. His phone started ringing with calls from journalists offering money for his story. He ignored them all. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," Victoria said, staring at the circus outside her window. "You can still walk away, Logan. No one would blame you. Stop trying to get rid of me. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need you to stop assuming I can't handle this." Logan moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I've been taking care of myself and my son for 3 years. I've dealt with grief and single parenthood and trying to be enough when I'm only one person. Your corporate drama? I can handle it." Victoria looked up at him, and Logan saw something shift in her expression, a letting go of control maybe, or an acceptance that she didn't have to face this alone. Okay, you can stay." She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. "But if this goes sideways, if Marcus comes after you or Jamie, you get out. Deal?" "Deal." They stood like that for a while, hands linked, watching the media frenzy below and the mountains beyond. The Silverwood fire was still burning in the distance, a reminder of where they'd been and what they'd survived. "I've been thinking," Victoria said eventually, "about what I told you on the mountain, about running from everything. And I think I was running from the wrong things. It's not the company I hate, it's what I'd let it become, a weapon instead of a tool, a prison instead of a purpose." She squeezed his hand. "Maybe it's time to remember why I started building in the first place." Logan thought about that, about purpose and meaning, and the difference between running from something and running toward it. What did you want to build, originally, before it got complicated? Things that mattered. Spaces where people could connect, communities that felt like home. I wanted to create places that made the world a little less lonely. Victoria laughed softly. "Somewhere along the way, I forgot that part. Started chasing profit margins instead of purpose. So remember it now. Take back your company and make it into what you wanted it to be." "Just like that?" "Why not? You survived a wildfire and corporate sabotage. Rebuilding a company should be easy." Victoria turned to face him fully, her expression serious. "Come with me, to the board meeting. I want you there." "Victoria, I'm a search and rescue specialist. I don't know anything about corporate. I don't need you for corporate expertise. I need you because you remind me who I am beneath all the rest of it." She held his gaze. "Please, push us." Logan knew he should say no. Knew he was getting in deeper than was wise, crossing lines that probably shouldn't be crossed. But he looked at Victoria, brilliant, fierce, vulnerable Victoria, who'd ordered him to leave her on a burning mountain, and then thanked him for staying, and he couldn't refuse. "Okay," he said, "I'll be there." The smile she gave him was worth every complication that was sure to follow. That night, after visiting hours ended and the hospital quieted down, Logan sat in his truck in the parking lot and called Cal. "Hayes? You still alive?" "Barely." Logan rubbed his eyes, feeling the exhaustion of the past few days catching up. "I need a favor." "Name it." "Can you keep an eye on my place? Make sure Jamie's okay? I'm going to be tied up with the Hale situation for a while, and I just want to make sure that nobody tries anything stupid." Cal's voice was grim. "Already on it. Got a deputy doing regular patrols past your house, and Mrs. Chen has my number if anything feels off." Relief washed through Logan. "Thanks, Cal." "Don't thank me. Just be careful. Men like Marcus Reeves don't fight fair, and you're a much easier target than Victoria Hale." "I know. Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're getting awful close to a woman whose business partner tried to kill her. That's not a smart play, Hayes." Logan stared out at the dark mountains, thinking about Victoria's hand in his, about the way she'd looked at him when she asked him to stay. "Since when have I been known for smart plays?" Cal sighed. "Fair point. Just watch your back, all right? And keep that boy of yours safe. Always." Logan ended the call and sat there for a while longer, watching the lights in the hospital windows and trying to convince himself that he wasn't making a massive mistake. He failed pretty spectacularly at that, but he went home anyway, crawled into bed beside a sleeping Jamie who'd migrated into his room at some point, and decided that some mistakes were worth making. Monday was coming, and with it, a reckoning that would either destroy Victoria Hale or remake her into something stronger. Either way, Logan was going to be there to see it through. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock Monday morning at Hale Enterprises headquarters in downtown Billings. Victoria was discharged from the hospital Sunday afternoon with a wheelchair, a prescription for painkillers she refused to take because she needed her mind sharp, and Logan's arm to lean on as they navigated the gauntlet of reporters waiting outside. "Ms. Hale, can you comment on the allegations against Marcus Reeves? Is it true you were left to die in the wildfire? Who's the man with you? Are you two involved?" Victoria ignored them all, her face a mask of composure that Logan was beginning to recognize as her armor. He helped her into Patricia's waiting car, folding the wheelchair and loading it into the trunk, while cameras clicked and questions flew. "You okay?" Logan asked once they were safely inside, pulling away from the hospital. "I will be." Victoria stared straight ahead, her hands clenched in her lap. "Once this is over?" Patricia glanced at them in the rear-view mirror. "The board members have all been briefed. They've seen the evidence. Marcus is going to walk into that meeting thinking he's won, and we're going to take everything from him. What if they side with him anyway? Victoria's voice was steady, but Logan heard the doubt underneath. What if they decide profit matters more than ethics? Then we take it public. Force a shareholder vote. Burn it all down if we have to. Patricia's tone was fierce. But it won't come to that. These are business people, Victoria. Show them the numbers. Show them the liability Marcus represents, and they'll turn on him like sharks. Logan spent that night at a hotel near the headquarters, unable to sleep, checking his phone every 20 minutes for messages from Mrs. Chen about Jamie. Everything was fine at home. His son was safe, happy, asking when Dad would be back. Logan had promised him soon, but he wasn't sure he believed it himself. At some point around 3 in the morning, his phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Can't sleep. You? No. Nervous, terrified. But don't tell anyone. Logan smiled despite everything. Your secret's safe with me. There was a pause, then, thank you for being here. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. I know. Now get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be hell. Tomorrow's going to be justice. Logan hoped she was right. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of October day that promised winter was coming whether anyone was ready or not. Logan picked up Victoria from her hotel at 8:30, helping her navigate the wheelchair with a practiced efficiency that came from years of rescue work. She'd dressed for war, a sharp navy suit that probably cost more than Logan's truck, her hair pulled back severely, minimal makeup, except for lipstick the color of arterial blood. The cast on her leg was hidden beneath tailored pants, and if you didn't know she'd nearly died a week ago, you'd never guess from looking at her. How do I look? She asked as they rode the elevator up to the executive floor. Like someone about to end a man's career. Good. Her smile was all edges. That's exactly what I'm going for. The boardroom was intimidating as hell. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive table that could seat 20, and artwork on the walls that Logan suspected cost more than his annual salary. 8 board members were already seated, their expressions ranging from shock to carefully neutral curiosity. Marcus Reeves sat at the head of the table in Victoria's chair, looking confident and comfortable right up until Victoria rolled through the door. The color drained from his face so fast Logan thought the man might actually pass out. Victoria. Marcus stood slowly, like he was seeing a ghost. They told me you were dead. They were premature. Victoria maneuvered her wheelchair to the opposite end of the table, Logan positioning himself slightly behind her. Patricia took the seat to her right, laying out folders in front of each board member with brutal precision. Marcus recovered quickly, his expression shifting to concern that looked almost genuine. My God, Victoria, we've been devastated. The fire, you thought I'd burned to death on Silverwood Ridge, which was exactly what you intended when you sent me up there. Victoria's voice cut through his performance like a blade. Fortunately, I'm harder to kill than you anticipated. The boardroom went dead silent. Marcus's mask of concern cracked, anger flashing through. That's a serious accusation. You've been through a trauma, and I understand. The folders in front of you contain evidence of Marcus Reeves's systematic sabotage of the Silverwood Ridge development project. Patricia interrupted, her tone clinical. Falsified survey data, bribes paid to county officials, communications with contractors to deliberately inflate costs and create delays. He's been bleeding this company for 18 months while positioning himself to take control. One of the board members, an older woman named Helen Carter, who'd been with the company since Victoria's father ran it, opened her folder and started reading. Her expression darkened with each page. This is circumstantial at best, Marcus said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Business communications taken out of context. Page 14, Victoria said calmly. Your email to Thomas Brennan at High Country Surveys explicitly instructing him to misreport geological instabilities on the East Ridge Access Road. Page 22, your payment of $30,000 to County Commissioner Walsh to delay environmental impact reviews. Page 36, your meeting notes outlining how my death would allow you to consolidate control and push through the modified development plan. But Mat says. Helen looked up, her face pale. Marcus, please tell me this isn't what it looks like. It's fabricated. Victoria's clearly emotionally compromised. And someone's feeding her false information to undermine. The FBI verified the documents Friday afternoon, Patricia said. They've also opened an investigation into the origin of the Silverwood fire. Turns out there's security footage from a gas station near the trailhead showing your car in the area the morning the fire started. That was news to Logan. He watched Marcus's face carefully, saw the moment the man realized he was cornered. I was scouting locations for the project, Marcus said, but it sounded weak even to Logan's ears. I had nothing to do with that fire. Then you won't mind explaining why you were there 3 hours before Victoria arrived, or why you paid cash for 20 gallons of gasoline and fire accelerant. Patricia slid another document across the table. Receipt was in your car. Police found it during their search yesterday. The room erupted. Board members started talking over each other, some reading through the evidence, others demanding explanations. Marcus stood there, his carefully constructed world falling apart piece by piece, and Logan saw the exact moment he decided to fight dirty. Even if any of this were true, Marcus said, raising his voice over the chaos, it doesn't change the fact that Victoria's judgment is compromised. She's been sleeping with a rescue worker, bringing him into confidential company business, making decisions based on emotion rather than strategy. That's not leadership, that's liability. Every eye in the room turned to Logan. He felt his face heat, anger rising in his chest, but before he could say anything, Victoria laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the kind of sound that made everyone in the room go quiet and pay attention. Interesting strategy, Marcus. When caught committing fraud and attempted murder, attack the victim's personal life. Victoria's eyes were cold enough to freeze steel. But let's examine that claim. Logan Hayes saved my life. He carried me through a wildfire when he could have left me to die. He's been a witness to your crimes and a reminder that some people still value human life over profit margins. If that's a liability, then I'll gladly own it. She turned her attention to the board, and Logan watched her transform from the woman he'd held on a fire tower into the CEO who'd built an empire. This company was founded on the principle that we build things that matter. Communities, not just commodities. Spaces where people can build lives, not just where we can extract maximum profit. My father believed that, and so do I. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of it. We started measuring success in quarterly earnings instead of lives improved. We prioritized shareholders over stakeholders. Helen was nodding slowly. 2 other board members looked thoughtful. Marcus looked like he wanted to strangle someone. The Silverwood project was supposed to be different, Victoria continued. A sustainable development that honored the land and the community. But Marcus turned it into another luxury playground for people who already have everything. Damn the environmental cost. Damn the local impact. And when I tried to stop it, he decided I was expendable. This is absurd, Marcus snapped. You're using a personal vendetta to... The evidence speaks for itself, Helen cut him off. And frankly, Marcus, your behavior in this meeting isn't helping your case. You've been sitting in Victoria's chair for a week, making decisions as if you already own this company. That alone raises questions about your motives. Another board member, Richard Chen, no relation to Logan's neighbor, cleared his throat. I move that we suspend Marcus Reeves from all duties pending a full investigation into these allegations. Seconded, Helen said immediately. You can't do this, Marcus said, but there was desperation in his voice now. I have contracts, agreements, which are void if you obtain them through fraud, Patricia said. The injunction already froze your shares. This vote will remove you from the company entirely. The vote was quick and brutal, 8-1 in favor of suspension, with Marcus casting the only dissenting vote. He stood there for a moment, his face red with rage and humiliation, then swept his folders off the table in a violent gesture that made everyone flinch. This isn't over, he said, pointing at Victoria. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started. I'll bury you in lawsuits. I'll expose every mistake you've ever made. You'll leave this building in the next 5 minutes, or I'll have security escort you out, Victoria said, her voice flat and final. Your access cards have been deactivated. Your company accounts are frozen. You're done here, Marcus. For a moment, Logan thought the man might actually attack her. Marcus's hands were shaking, his whole body rigid with fury. Then two security guards appeared in the doorway. Patricia had clearly planned ahead, and Marcus seemed to deflate. "You'll regret this," he said quietly, viciously. "All of you." He left, the security guards trailing behind him, and the tension in the room didn't break so much as shift into something different. Helen stood, walked around the table, and offered Victoria her hand. "Welcome back," she said. "We missed you." Victoria shook it, and Logan saw her blink back tears she refused to let fall. "Thank you for believing me. The evidence made it easy. Your courage made it possible." Helen glanced at Logan, then back to Victoria. "I think we have a lot to discuss about the future of this company. But first, you should probably go somewhere that isn't a boardroom and process what just happened." Victoria nodded, suddenly looking exhausted. Logan moved to her wheelchair, ready to get her out of there, but Helen stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Mr. Hayes, a word?" Logan looked at Victoria, who nodded. Patricia stepped in to help her, and Helen drew Logan aside to the windows overlooking the city. "I've been on this board for 23 years, Helen said quietly. "I watched Victoria grow up, watched her build this company into something her father would be proud of. And I've never seen her look at anyone the way she looks at you." Logan wasn't sure what to say to that. "We've been through a lot in a short time." "That's one way of putting it." Helen's smile was knowing. "Marcus was right about one thing. You're an unusual choice for someone in Victoria's position. No offense intended." "None taken. I know what I am and what I'm not." "Good. Because what you are is exactly what she needs right now. Someone who sees her as a person instead of a portfolio. Someone who'll tell her the truth instead of what she wants to hear." Helen's expression turned serious. "But I need you to understand something. This fight isn't over. Marcus has resources, connections, and no moral compass to constrain him. He'll come after Victoria again, and probably after you too. I can handle it." "Can you?" "Because you have a son, Mr. Hayes, a life outside of all this. Victoria's world is brutal and unforgiving, and it destroys good people without even trying. Are you prepared for that?" Logan looked out of the city, thinking about Jamie and Mrs. Chen and his small house with the leaky roof. Thinking about the simple, predictable life he'd built after Sarah died, and how Victoria Hale had crashed into it like a wildfire, burning away everything safe and leaving him standing in the ashes, wondering what came next. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm not walking away just because it's hard." Helen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good enough. Just remember, the mountain was one kind of survival. This is another, and sometimes the second kind is harder." Logan rejoined Victoria and Patricia outside the building, where reporters had already gathered despite the early hour. Victoria handled them with the same cool composure she'd shown in the boardroom, giving a brief statement about being grateful to be alive, committed to leading her company forward, and having full faith in the legal system to handle the allegations against Marcus Reeves. She didn't mention Logan, didn't look at him, kept him carefully separate from the public narrative. He appreciated that more than he could say. They escaped to Patricia's car, and as soon as the doors closed, Victoria's composure cracked. She leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes, breathing hard like she'd just run a marathon. "You did it," Logan said quietly. "We did it." She reached for his hand without opening her eyes. "I couldn't have done that without you there." "You absolutely could have." "Maybe, but I didn't want to." She opened her eyes, turning to look at him. "Logan, what Helen said to you was fair. She's looking out for you. She's also wrong. About you being a risk. About this being too complicated. Unless—" Victoria's grip on his hand tightened. "Unless you think she's right." Logan thought about lying, about making this easy for both of them by stepping back and letting her return to her world while he returned to his. But he'd faced down a wildfire and a corporate conspiracy with this woman, and she deserved better than comfortable lies. "I think this is the most complicated thing I've ever been part of," he said honestly. "I think there's a very good chance it's going to blow up in both our faces. I think Marcus is going to make our lives hell, and the media is going to pick apart everything we do, and at some point Jamie's going to ask me questions I don't have good answers for." Victoria's expression fell, and Logan realized she thought he was about to walk away. He squeezed her hand. "But I also think you're worth it. Whatever happens next, I want to see it through with you." The smile she gave him was tremulous, relieved, and so beautiful it hurt to look at. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Patricia cleared her throat from the front seat. Hate to interrupt, but we have a problem. She held up her phone, showing a news alert. Logan read the headline and felt his stomach drop. Marcus Reeves claims Hale Enterprises CEO orchestrated fake rescue to frame business partner. He's claiming I set up the whole thing? Victoria said, reading over Logan's shoulder. That I hired you to rescue me, falsified evidence, and am using the fire as cover to force him out of the company. That's insane. That's Marcus. Victoria's jaw set in a hard line. He's fighting back exactly like I knew he would. Question is, how do we counter it? Patricia was already typing on her phone. The police have his car, his receipts, his communications with the contractors. We have a paper trail showing the fraud. His story falls apart under basic scrutiny. But it'll still do damage, Victoria said. Plant doubt, make people question whether I'm the victim or the villain. Logan thought about this, about Marcus's desperation and the dangerous position of a man with nothing left to lose. He's going to escalate. This is just the opening move. Agreed. Victoria pulled out her own phone, scrolling through messages. I'm already getting calls from board members, investors, journalists wanting comment. Patricia, can you? On it. I'll draft a statement, set up interviews with outlets that'll actually fact-check instead of just running with sensational headlines. They spent the rest of the drive to Victoria's hotel planning strategy, fielding calls, and watching Marcus's counterattack spread across social media and news sites. By the time they arrived, the story had evolved. Now there were sources close to Reeves claiming Victoria had been embezzling company funds, that the Silverwood project was her vanity project gone wrong, that she'd used her personal relationship with Logan to manipulate the investigation. It was brutal, efficient, and designed to destroy her credibility before the facts could catch up. Logan helped Victoria to her hotel room while Patricia went to meet with the PR team. Once the door closed behind them, Victoria sagged against him, the weight of the day finally catching up. I knew he'd fight back, she said, her voice muffled against Logan's shoulder. I just didn't think it would feel like this. Like what? Like drowning. Like no matter how hard I swim, the water just keeps rising. She pulled back and Logan saw exhaustion and fear warring in her expression. What if he wins? What if people believe him? Then we keep fighting. Show them the truth until they can't ignore it anymore. And if that's not enough? Logan didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he guided her to the couch, helped her prop up her injured leg, and sat beside her in silence. Outside, the city spread out beneath them, all those lives being lived, all those people who had no idea that a war was being fought in boardrooms and press releases. Victoria's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. She ignored it, staring at the ceiling like the answers might be written there. I should call Jamie, Logan said eventually. Let him know I'm okay. You should go home, be with him. This isn't your fight, Logan. We've been over this. No, listen. Victoria sat up, turning to face him fully. Marcus is going to come after you now. After your reputation, your job, maybe even your custody of Jamie if he thinks it'll hurt me. I won't let you risk that. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is, because I care about you too much to watch you get destroyed by my mistakes. The words hung in the air between them, too big and too honest for a Monday afternoon in a hotel room. Logan looked at Victoria, brilliant, fierce, terrified Victoria who'd survived a wildfire and was now facing a different kind of inferno, and made a choice. I'm staying, he said firmly. Whatever Marcus throws at us, we face it together. And if he comes after Jamie, then he learns real quick what happens when you threaten a single father's kid. Victoria searched his face, looking for doubt or hesitation. Logan let her look, knowing she wouldn't find any. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Together. Together. They sat like that for a while, hands linked, watching the afternoon light fade over the city. Logan's phone rang. Mrs. Chen probably, or Cal checking in. He ignored it. Right now, this moment, this woman, this choice, that was all that mattered. The call ended and immediately started again. This time it was Cal's personal number. Logan answered. Hayes, where are you? Something in Cal's voice made Logan straighten up. Billings. Why? You need to get home. Now. Logan's blood ran cold. Is it Jamie? Is he hurt? Jamie's fine. He's with Mrs. Chen, but someone broke into your house this afternoon, tore the place apart, top to bottom. Police are there now, taking statements. Logan was already standing, grabbing his jacket. Victoria watched him with wide eyes, and he saw her put the pieces together from his side of the conversation. I'm on my way. Don't let Jamie see the house until I get there. Already handled. Mrs. Chen took him to her place when she saw your front door was open. Logan, this wasn't random. They were looking for something specific. How do you know? Because they left a message, spray painted on your bedroom wall. Says, stay out of things that don't concern you, or next time we take the kid. The world tilted sideways. Logan heard Victoria gasp, heard himself say something to Cal about being there in 2 hours, heard the call end. Then he was moving, throwing his things in his bag, his mind racing with images of Jamie in danger, of strangers in his home, of Marcus Reeves's face in the boardroom saying this wasn't over. Logan. Victoria was beside him, gripping his arm. I'm coming with you. You can't. Your leg. Shh. I don't care about my leg. Someone threatened your son because of me. I'm coming. There was no point in arguing. Logan helped her to the door, called Patricia to bring the car around, and tried not to think about what he was going to say to Jamie, to Mrs. Chen, to the police. As they rode the elevator down, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She read it and went pale. What? Logan demanded. Silently, she showed him the screen. This is just the beginning. Drop the investigation or everyone you care about pays the price. Starting with the rescue hero and his son. Logan stared at the message, at the casual threat against his child, and felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. Marcus Reeves had made a critical mistake. He'd brought Jamie into this. And now, there would be consequences. The drive back took 90 minutes that felt like 90 hours. Patricia drove while Logan sat in the passenger seat with his hands clenched into fists and Victoria in the back, making call after call, to her lawyers, to private security firms, to contacts Logan didn't even know she had. Her voice stayed calm and professional, but he could see her hands shaking every time she lowered the phone. Logan called Mrs. Chen first. Is he okay? He asked before she could even say hello. He's fine, Logan. He's watching cartoons and eating cookies like nothing happened. He doesn't know about the house yet. Mrs. Chen's voice was steady, but Logan could hear the fear underneath. I told him we were having an adventure day at my place. Thank you. I'll be there soon. Don't tell him anything until I arrive. Of course, Logan, the police want to talk to you when you get here. Detective Morrison has been asking questions. I know. I'll handle it. Logan paused. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. Don't you dare apologize. That boy is like my own grandson. I'd do anything to keep him safe. Her voice hardened. But you need to figure out who did this and make sure it doesn't happen again. Logan ended the call and stared out the window at the darkening landscape. Beside him, Patricia glanced over. We'll get police protection, she said. Round-the-clock security on your house, on Jamie, on Mrs. Chen. Victoria's already arranging it. That's not a long-term solution. No, but it's a start. Patricia's jaw was tight. Marcus crossed a line. Threatening a child. That's not just corporate warfare anymore. That's criminal. From the back seat, Victoria leaned forward. The text came from a burner phone, already had my IT team trace it, purchased yesterday with cash from a convenience store in Billings. No cameras, no trail. Of course not. Logan's voice was flat. Marcus is too smart to make it easy. Maybe. But smart people make mistakes when they're desperate. Victoria's hand found his shoulder, squeezing gently. We're going to end this, Logan. I promise you that. Logan wanted to believe her, but right now, all he could think about was Jamie's face, about how he was going to explain that someone had broken into their home, that his father's decision to help a stranger had put them both in danger. They arrived at Mrs. Chen's house just after 6. Logan was out of the car before Patricia had fully stopped, taking the porch steps 2 at a time. Mrs. Chen opened the door before he could knock. He's in the living room, she said quietly. I told him you had a work emergency, but you'd be here for dinner. Logan nodded and walked through the familiar hallway. Jamie was sprawled on the floor in front of the TV, his stuffed wolf clutched under one arm. completely absorbed in some animated show about talking vehicles. When he heard Logan's footsteps, his head whipped around and his whole face lit up. "Dad!" Jamie scrambled to his feet and launched himself at Logan, who caught him and held on tight, breathing in the familiar smell of kid shampoo and cookie crumbs. "You're back, Mrs. Chen said you were fighting a really big fire and had to save lots of people." Something like that. Logan set Jamie down, kneeling so they were eye level. "Hey, buddy, I need to talk to you about something." "Zwang?" Jamie's smile faded. He was perceptive for 7, could read Logan's moods better than most adults. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. You're safe. I'm safe. Everything's okay. But we're going to stay at Mrs. Chen's house for a few days while our house gets some repairs done." "What kind of repairs?" Logan hesitated. How much truth could a 7-year-old handle? How much should he share? "Some people came by and made a mess. Nothing dangerous, just they broke some things. So we need to get everything cleaned up and fixed before we can go back." Jamie processed this with the seriousness of someone much older. "Bad people?" "Yeah, bad people. Are they going to come back?" The question hit Logan square in the chest. He wanted to lie, to promise that everything would be fine, that the bad people were gone forever. But Jamie deserved better than comfortable lies. "I don't know," Logan said honestly. "But I'm going to make sure you're safe no matter what. That's my job, keeping you safe. And I'm really good at my job." Jamie nodded slowly, then threw his arms around Logan's neck. "I'm glad you're home." "Me too, kiddo. Me too." Logan stayed with Jamie for another hour, helping Mrs. Chen make dinner and pretending everything was normal, while Victoria and Patricia dealt with police and security arrangements from the dining room. He could hear snatches of conversation, descriptions of the break-in, discussions of protective details, Victoria's sharp questions about response times and coverage gaps. After dinner, Jamie went back to his cartoons while Logan finally went to see his house. The scene was worse than he'd imagined. His front door had been kicked in, the frame splintered. Inside, every drawer had been emptied, every cabinet searched, furniture overturned and cushions slashed. They'd gone through everything, his bedroom, Jamie's room, even the bathroom medicine cabinet. But it was the message on his bedroom wall that made Logan's hands shake with rage. Spray-painted in dripping red letters. "Stay out of things that don't concern you, or next time we take the kid." Detective Morrison was a tired-looking woman in her 50s who'd seen too much to be shocked by much of anything. She found Logan standing in his bedroom doorway, staring at the message. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry about this." Logan didn't turn around. "Any leads?" "Not yet. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no security cameras in this neighborhood. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Morrison moved to stand beside him. "But we both know this wasn't random, don't we?" It's connected to the Victoria Hale case." "That's what I figured. You want to tell me what you've gotten yourself into?" Logan finally looked at her. "I pulled a woman off a burning mountain, gave a statement to police about what I saw. That's it. I didn't ask for any of this." But you're still involved. Still standing beside Victoria Hale while she goes to war with Marcus Reeves." Morrison's expression wasn't judgmental, just matter of fact. "I can't prove Reeves ordered this, not yet. But I can tell you that men like him don't stop at property damage. If he's willing to threaten your son, he's willing to do worse." "I know." "So what are you going to do about it?" Logan looked back at the message on his wall. "I'm going to make sure he can't hurt anyone else." Morrison studied him for a long moment. "Don't do anything stupid, Hayes. Let the law handle this." "The law moves slow. My son's safety doesn't wait for due process. I understand that. But if you take matters into your own hands, you become the criminal and Reeves walks free. Is that what you want?" No. What Logan wanted was to find Marcus Reeves and make him regret every decision that had led to this moment. But Morrison was right. Acting on rage would only make things worse. "I'll leave it to the professionals," Logan said finally. "But I need police protection for my son. Round the clock until this is resolved. Already arranged. We'll have a patrol car outside Mrs. Chen's house tonight, and we're coordinating with the private security team Victoria Hale is providing." Logan nodded, unable to find words for the gratitude and frustration warring inside him. Morrison left to continue her investigation, and Logan stood alone in his violated home, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Victoria found him there 20 minutes later. She navigated through the debris with her wheelchair, Patricia helping her over the worst of it, and when she saw the message on the wall, her face went white. "Logan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of it. It's not your fault. It's Marcus's. But if you hadn't come up that mountain, then you'd be dead and he'd still be a piece of shit threatening people to get what he wants. Don't apologize for being the victim here." Logan moved away from the wall, unable to look at it anymore. "We need to end this, fast, before he escalates again." Patricia cleared her throat. "I may have something. While you were with Jamie, I got a call from one of my investigators. They found a connection between Marcus and a man named Derek Tobin, professional fixer, handles dirty work for people who want to keep their hands clean. Credit card records show Marcus paid Tobin $20,000 3 days before the Silverwood fire." Logan felt something click into place. "Can we prove Tobin started the fire?" "Oh, he was." "Not yet. But we can prove Marcus hired him, and if we can connect Tobin to the fire or this break-in, we have a direct line back to Marcus." "How do we find Tobin?" Victoria and Patricia exchanged a look. "That's where things get complicated," Victoria said carefully. "Tobin's not exactly someone you look up in a phone book. He's got connections to some very dangerous people. I don't care how dangerous he is. He threatened my son, which is exactly why you need to let professionals handle this," Patricia said firmly. "I've already contacted the FBI. They're interested in the case, especially with the potential arson angle. Let them track down Tobin." "And how long will that take? Days? Weeks? Marcus could do anything in that time." "Logan," Victoria reached for his hand, "I know you're scared. I know you want to fix this right now. But going after Tobin yourself is suicide. These people don't play by normal rules." "Neither do I when it comes to protecting Jamie." "I know. That's one of the things Victoria stopped herself. But Logan heard what she didn't say. She looked away, her jaw tight. "Just promise me you won't do anything reckless, please." Logan wanted to promise, wanted to be the reasonable person who waited for the system to work, who trusted that justice would prevail. But he kept seeing that message on his wall, kept hearing the threat against Jamie echoing in his head. "I promise I won't do anything stupid," he said finally. "But I'm not going to sit around and wait to be a victim either." That night, Logan and Jamie stayed at Mrs. Chen's house while a security team Victoria had hired swept his property and set up surveillance. Logan lay on the guest room bed with Jamie curled against his side, both of them unable to sleep. "Dad?" Jamie's voice was small in the darkness. "Yeah? Are the bad people going to come back?" Logan wanted to lie. Every parental instinct in him screamed a promise that everything would be fine, that the bad people were gone forever. But he thought about Sarah, about all the promises he'd made that he couldn't keep, and decided Jamie deserved the truth. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you're safe. We've got police watching the house, security guards, everyone looking out for us. And if anyone tries to hurt you, they'll have to go through me first." "You're really strong, Dad. You could beat up the bad guys. Being strong isn't always about fighting, buddy. Sometimes it's about being smart, asking for help, protecting the people you love in ways that don't involve punching." Balkasi. Jamie was quiet for a moment. "Like how you saved that lady from the fire? You were smart about that. Exactly like that. Is she nice, the lady you saved?" Logan smiled in the darkness. "Yeah, she's nice and really smart, and she's helping us figure out how to stop the bad people." "Do you like her?" The question caught Logan off guard. "What?" "The lady, Victoria. Do you like her? Like how you liked Mom?" Logan's throat tightened. He and Jamie had talked about Sarah plenty of times, had looked at pictures and shared memories, but they'd never talked about Logan meeting someone new, about the possibility of caring for someone else. "It's different from Mom," Logan said carefully. "Nobody's ever going to replace her. But yeah, I like Victoria. She's important to me." Good. I hope she's okay too. The bad people shouldn't hurt her either. Logan pulled Jamie closer, breathing in the familiar comfort of his son, and felt something settle in his chest. Whatever happened next with Victoria, with Marcus, with this whole mess, he had this. He had Jamie, and that was worth fighting for. The next morning brought unexpected news. Patricia called at 7 with urgency in her voice that had Logan instantly alert. Derek Tobin was arrested 2 hours ago. The FBI raided his apartment in Billings and found evidence connecting him to at least 4 arsons in the past 3 years, including accelerants that match samples from the Silverwood fire origin point. Logan sat up, careful not to wake Jamie. Did he give up Marcus? Not yet, but his lawyer's already making noise about a deal. Tobin's looking at 20 years minimum on the arson charges alone. If he gives up whoever hired him for Silverwood, the prosecution might be willing to reduce the sentence. So we wait. We wait, Patricia confirmed. But Logan, there's more. The break-in at your house, we got a match on some partial DNA from one of the slashed cushions. It belongs to a man named Carl Hendricks, one of Tobin's known associates. He's got a record for assault and breaking and entering. Can you connect him to Marcus? Not directly. But if we can prove Hendricks works for Tobin, and Tobin works for Marcus, we've got a chain of evidence that puts Marcus behind both the fire and the threat against your family. Well, Logan felt the first real spark of hope since seeing his destroyed home. How long until we know? FBI's bringing in Hendricks for questioning this morning. I'll keep you updated. Patricia paused. Logan, this is good news. We're building a case that Marcus can't lawyer his way out of. After the call ended, Logan checked on Jamie, still sleeping soundly, and went downstairs. Victoria was already awake, sitting at Mrs. Chen's kitchen table with her laptop open and coffee steaming beside her. She looked up when Logan entered, and he saw the exhaustion carved into her features. She hadn't slept either. Patricia called you too, isn't? Logan asked. 5 minutes ago. Victoria closed her laptop. This could be it. The evidence we need to put Marcus away for good. If Tobin talks, if Hendricks cracks, if the FBI can make the connection stick. Logan poured himself coffee, his hands steadier than they'd been yesterday. A lot of ifs. Welcome to the legal system. Victoria's smile was tired. But Patricia thinks the case is strong. Marcus is scrambling. His lawyers have been filing motions all night trying to suppress evidence, claiming police overreach, anything to slow this down. Which means he's scared. Which means he's cornered, and cornered men are dangerous. As if on cue, Victoria's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her expression went cold. It's from Marcus's lawyer. He wants to meet. Says Marcus is prepared to offer a settlement to avoid further litigation. Logan moved to read over her shoulder. The email was formal, professional, and absolutely infuriating in its assumption that this was just a business dispute that could be resolved with money. He's trying to buy his way out, Logan said. Of course he is. That's what men like Marcus do when the walls start closing in. Offer money, make the problem go away, move on like nothing happened. Victoria's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He's probably hoping I'll take the deal just to make this all stop. Are you going to, Bees? Victoria looked up at him, and Logan saw the woman who'd faced down death on a fire tower, who'd walked into a boardroom and taken back her company, who'd refused to break even when everything was falling apart. Not a chance, she said. I'm going to watch him burn the way he tried to burn me. She typed a response. Brief, professional, and utterly final, declining the settlement and confirming her intention to pursue all criminal and civil remedies available. Then she hit send and closed her laptop with a decisive snap. Now what? Logan asked. Now we wait for the FBI to do their job and hope Tobin or Hendricks gives up Marcus before he tries something else. Victoria stood, balancing on her good leg, and we make sure Jamie stays safe while we wait. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Logan took Jamie to school with a security detail following at a discreet distance, something he'd had to explain to his confused and slightly excited son, as bodyguards like the president has. Mrs. Chen stayed home from her usual volunteer work, uncomfortable with the attention but unwilling to leave Logan and Jamie without support. Victoria worked from Mrs. Chen's dining room, turning the small house into a temporary command center. Lawyers called with updates. Board members checked in. The media continued to swarm the story, with public opinion shifting daily between supporting Victoria as a victim and questioning whether the whole thing was an elaborate hoax. Through it all, Logan felt like a spectator in his own life. He was used to being the one in control, the rescuer, the person who fixed problems. Now he was dependent on lawyers and law enforcement, waiting for other people to protect his family while he sat on the sidelines. It was driving him crazy. Around 3 in the afternoon, Patricia called with another update. Hendricks is talking. He confirmed Tobin hired him for the break-in, paid him $5,000 cash. But he swears he was just told to scare you, not hurt anyone. Real noble of him, Logan said dryly. The FBI is pushing him on who hired Tobin. Hendricks claims he doesn't know, that Tobin kept that information close. But they're offering him a deal too. Reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Tobin. This is taking too long. Every day Marcus is free is another day he could, I know, but the FBI is being thorough. They want an airtight case. Patricia's voice softened. I know this is hard, Logan, but we're close. Just hold on a little longer. Mamo. That evening, after Jamie was asleep and Mrs. Chen had retired to her room, Logan and Victoria sat on the back porch in the cold October night. The security team patrolled the perimeter, shadows moving through the darkness, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over them. I keep thinking about the mountain, Victoria said quietly. About how simple it was. Survive or die. Nothing in between. You miss it? Miss is the wrong word, but yeah, in a way. At least there I knew who the enemy was. Fire doesn't lie or manipulate or hide behind lawyers. Logan understood that better than he wanted to admit. This will end. Marcus will pay for what he did. Will he, though? I've seen men like him walk away from worse. Money buys a lot of second chances. Victoria pulled her jacket tighter against the chill. I'm scared, Logan. Not for me. I can handle whatever comes. But I'm scared of what happens if this doesn't work. If Marcus gets away with it and decides to come after you and Jamie again, then I'll handle it. How? You're one person. Marcus has resources, connections, people willing to do terrible things for money. How do you fight that? Logan thought about this, about the imbalance of power, the unfairness of the fight they were in, about how a single father from a small Montana town had somehow ended up in a war with a billionaire sociopath. Same way I fought the fire, he said finally. One step at a time. Don't think about the whole mountain, just focus on getting through the next minute, the next hour. Eventually you make it out the other side. And if you don't, then at least you didn't quit. Victoria was quiet for a long time. Then she reached over and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. They sat like that in the cold darkness. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and were somehow still holding on. Thank you, Victoria said softly, for not walking away when you had every reason to. Thank you for giving me a reason to stay. The breakthrough came at midnight. Logan was half asleep on Mrs. Chen's couch when his phone rang. Patricia, voice tight with controlled excitement. Derek Tobin just cut a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. He's giving a statement right now naming Marcus Reeves as the person who hired him to start the Silverwood fire with Victoria on the mountain. Logan was instantly awake. They're arresting him? FBI's moving on it now. They're also executing search warrants on Marcus's home and office. By morning, this should all be over. Logan wanted to feel relief. Logan wanted to believe this was finally done, but something nagged at him, a feeling he couldn't quite name. Patricia, where's Marcus right now? There was a pause. I don't know. Why? Because a man like him doesn't go down without a fight. And if he knows the walls are closing in, Logan didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Patricia swore softly and the line went dead as she presumably started making calls. Logan stood and moved to Victoria's temporary room, knocking softly. She answered immediately, clearly not asleep either. Something's wrong, Logan said without preamble. What happened? Tobin gave up Marcus. FBI's moving to arrest him. But Patricia doesn't know where Marcus is, and I have a bad feeling about this. Victoria's face went pale. You think he's running? I think he knows he's beaten, and desperate men do desperate things. Logan moved to the window, checking the street for the security detail. They were there, visible and alert. We need to... The explosion cut off his words. It came from the direction of his house. A massive boom that shook the windows and lit up the night sky with orange and red. Logan's heart stopped. His house. His home. Someone had just blown up his house. The security team was already moving, radios crackling with urgent communication. Logan ran for the front door, but Victoria caught his arm. Don't. It could be a trap to draw you out. She was right. Logan forced himself to stop, to think instead of react. His phone rang. Detective Morrison. Hayes, are you and your son safe? We're at Mrs. Chen's. What the hell just happened? Someone planted explosives at your property. The house is gone. If you'd been inside, Morrison didn't finish. We're treating this as an active attempt on your life. Stay where you are. We're sending units to your location now. Logan looked at Victoria, saw his own fear reflected in her eyes. Marcus? We're working that angle, but Hayes, there's something else. Marcus Reeves is missing. His car was found abandoned near the Canadian border about an hour ago. We think he's running. We're circling back to finish what he started. We're searching for him now. But until we have him in custody, you and Victoria need to stay in protective custody. The next hour was chaos. Police flooded Mrs. Chen's quiet street, turning it into a command center. Jamie woke up scared and confused, and Logan had to explain, again, that bad people were trying to hurt them, but the police were keeping them safe. Mrs. Chen took it all with remarkable composure, making tea and cookies like she was hosting an unexpected party rather than living through a nightmare. Through it all, Logan kept thinking about Marcus, about where he was, what he was planning, whether this was over or just beginning. Victoria sat beside him on the couch, her hand never leaving his. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault. It is, though. I brought this into your life. I let Marcus made his own choices. You're not responsible for his evil. Around 2 a.m, Patricia arrived with news. The FBI tracked Marcus's phone. Last ping was at a private airfield outside of Kalispell. They think he's trying to flee the country. Have they found him? Not yet, but every airport is on alert. Border Patrol is watching for him. He won't get far. But Logan wasn't convinced. Marcus had shown himself to be resourceful, connected, and willing to do anything to win. A man like that didn't give up easy. As dawn broke over the mountains, Logan stood at Mrs. Chen's window, watching police tape flutter around the smoking ruins of his home. Everything he and Sarah had built together, every memory of her that had lived in that house, was gone, destroyed by a man who couldn't stand to lose. Jamie came to stand beside him, sleep-rumpled and worried. Dad, is our house going to be okay? Logan looked down at his son and made a choice. No, buddy. The house is gone. But we're going to be okay. We have each other, and that's what matters. What about all our stuff? My toys and books, and some things we can replace, some things we can't. But the important stuff, you, me, the people who love us, that's all still here. Jamie processed this with the resilience of a child who'd already lost his mother and learned that nothing was permanent. Can we build a new house? Yeah, we can build a new house. Can Victoria help? The question surprised Logan. Maybe, if she wants to. I think she wants to. She looks at you the way you used to look at Mom. Logan's throat tightened. 7 years old and already so perceptive. You okay with that? Jamie shrugged. Mom would want you to be happy. And Victoria seems nice. Plus she's really brave. Mrs. Chen told me she survived a huge fire. She did. She's very brave. Like you. I don't know about that, kiddo. I do. You're the bravest person I know. Logan pulled Jamie into a hug, holding on to the one thing in his life that mattered more than anything else. Whatever happened next with Marcus, with Victoria, with rebuilding his life from ashes, he had this. He had his son. And that was enough to keep fighting for. Marcus Reeves was found 3 days later trying to cross into Canada through a remote logging road in the northern wilderness. He had $50,000 in cash, a fake passport, and a loaded handgun. The arrest was quiet, anticlimactic, nothing like the explosive violence he'd unleashed on Logan's life. Just a desperate man caught at a border crossing, looking smaller and more pathetic than someone who'd tried to burn people alive had any right to be. Logan watched the news coverage from a hotel room in Whitefish, where the FBI had moved them for safety. Victoria sat beside him on the bed, her casted leg propped on pillows, and neither of them said anything as the footage showed Marcus being led away in handcuffs. "It's over," Victoria said finally, but her voice held no triumph, just exhaustion. "The running part is, the legal part's just starting." I know. She reached for his hand. Patricia says with Tobin's testimony and the evidence from Marcus's computer, the prosecution has enough for attempted murder, arson, conspiracy. He's looking at 20 years minimum. 20 years. Logan tried to feel satisfied with that, tried to find some measure of justice in knowing Marcus would spend the next 2 decades in prison. But all he could think about was his house in ruins, Jamie asking questions a 7-year-old shouldn't have to ask, and the fact that no prison sentence could undo the damage that had been done. Jamie was in the adjoining room with Mrs. Chen, playing with new toys that Victoria had bought to replace the ones lost in the explosion. Logan could hear his son's laughter through the door. Resilient, innocent, completely unaware that the man who tried to kill his father was now in custody. "What happens now?" Logan asked. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I go back to Billings, rebuild the company, clean house of everyone who enabled Marcus. Make sure something like this never happens again." "And us?" The question hung in the air between them. Us. Such a small word for something so complicated. They'd known each other for barely 2 weeks, had spent most of that time running from fires literal and metaphorical, had built an intimacy born from survival rather than the normal rhythms of dating and getting to know each other. "I don't know," Victoria admitted. "I want there to be an us. But Logan, look at what my world did to yours. Your house is gone. Your son was threatened. You can't even go home because there's nothing left to go home to. That's not your fault, isn't it? If you'd never pulled me off that mountain, then you'd be dead and Marcus would still be a monster, just one who got away with it. Stop trying to take responsibility for his choices." Logan shifted to face her fully. "Look, I'm not going to pretend this hasn't been hell. It has. But you didn't do this to me. You didn't ask for any of it. And I'm not going to let you blame yourself for being the victim of someone else's evil." Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You should hate me." "I don't hate you. Logan stopped, realizing what he'd been about to say and how insane it would sound. They'd known each other for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of chaos and danger and circumstances that had nothing to do with real life. Whatever he felt, it was probably just trauma bonding or gratitude or some psychological response to shared near-death experiences. Except it didn't feel like that. It felt real. "You what?" Victoria asked softly. Logan took a breath and decided to be honest. "I care about you. More than I probably should given the circumstances. And I know this is complicated and messy, and there's 1,000 reasons why it won't work. But I want to try anyway." Victoria leaned forward and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, nothing like the desperate clutching on the fire tower or the fear-driven contact in the hospital. This was a choice, made in the quiet aftermath of catastrophe, by 2 people who'd seen each other at their worst, and decided it was worth exploring what came next. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. "I want to try too, but Logan, I need you to understand something. My world, the company, the board meetings, the media scrutiny, that's not going away. If we do this, if we try to build something real, you and Jamie are going to be part of that world. People will have opinions, cameras will follow us. It's going to be invasive and frustrating and sometimes awful. I know. Do you? Because it's one thing to say you know, and another to live it. To have reporters asking Jamie questions about his dead mother, while trying to get a story about his father dating a billionaire. To have your every decision analyzed and criticized by people who don't know you and don't care about anything except selling clicks. Logan thought about this, about the life he'd built in the quiet anonymity of a small town, about the simple rhythms of school runs and rescue calls and bedtime stories. Thought about Sarah and the life they'd planned before cancer had stolen it away. Thought about whether he was ready to trade that comfortable grief for the chaotic uncertainty of Victoria's world. "I'm scared," he admitted, "of screwing this up, of not being enough, of Jamie getting hurt because I made the wrong choice. But I'm more scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. The things worth having usually are." They sat together in the hotel room while Montana winter pressed against the windows, and somewhere in the distance, Marcus Reeves sat in a cell contemplating the ruins of his own making. Logan thought about fire towers and burning mountains, about the moment he decided to run into the flames instead of away from them, about how sometimes the only way out was through. The next week was a blur of legal proceedings and media statements. Marcus was formally charged with attempted murder, arson, conspiracy to commit fraud, and a dozen other crimes that Patricia rattled off with professional satisfaction. Tobin and Hendricks both took plea deals and agreed to testify. The evidence was overwhelming, the case airtight. Victoria threw herself into rebuilding Hale Enterprises with the same fierce determination she'd shown on the mountain. She fired 3 board members who'd been complicit in Marcus's schemes, restructured the Silverwood project to actually honor environmental concerns and community input, and gave a series of interviews where she talked honestly about corporate responsibility and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Logan watched her navigate that world with a mix of admiration and disorientation. She was brilliant in boardrooms, devastating in negotiations, and completely comfortable wielding power in ways that made him feel like a spectator in her life rather than a participant. "You're staring," Victoria said one evening as they sat in her penthouse apartment in Billings. Jamie was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from a day of exploring the city. "Just trying to figure out how you do it. Switch between CEO and person so seamlessly." "It's not seamless. I just hide the messy parts better in public." She set down her laptop and moved to sit beside him on the couch. "Does it bother you, seeing me like that?" "No. It's just different from the woman I met on the mountain." "Me, my porch. That woman is still here. She's just wearing better shoes now." Victoria smiled, but Logan could see the vulnerability beneath it. "I meant what I said in the boardroom that day, about wanting to build things that matter, communities that feel like home. I'm trying to remember that part of myself." "You're doing a good job." "Am I?" "Because half the time I feel like I'm just playing a role, saying what people expect to hear while trying to keep everything from falling apart again." Logan understood that better than she probably realized. He'd been playing the role of competent single father for 3 years, projecting confidence while terrified he was failing Jamie every single day. "Nobody has it figured out," he said. "We're all just making it up as we go and hoping we don't screw it up too badly." That's a depressing thought. Or a liberating one. Means we're allowed to make mistakes. Victoria leaned against him, and Logan wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 lives being lived, 1,000 stories unfolding in apartments and houses and hotel rooms. Their story was just one among millions, messy and complicated and uncertain. But it was theirs. 2 months later, Logan stood in front of a piece of land on the outskirts of town where his house used to be. The debris had been cleared away, leaving just bare ground and memories. The insurance company had finally come through, and Logan had decisions to make about rebuilding. Victoria pulled up in her car. She'd graduated from the wheelchair to a walking boot and could drive again, and came to stand beside him. She didn't say anything, just slipped her hand into his and waited. "I'm not sure I want to rebuild here," Logan said finally. "Too many ghosts." "Where would you go?" "I don't know. Somewhere Jamie can have space to run around, somewhere quiet, somewhere that feels like home." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then, "I've been thinking about the Silverwood project, about what we could build there instead of luxury condos and resort hotels."
"Yeah."
"What if we built a community? Real homes for real families, mixed-income housing, green spaces, a school. Something that honors what that land is instead of trying to exploit it." Logan looked at her. "That's not going to make you much money." "No, but it might make me feel like I'm building something that matters again." She squeezed his hand. "And there's land set aside for search and rescue facilities, training grounds, equipment storage, housing for responders. I thought maybe you could help design it. Make it something that could actually save lives instead of just being another development project." Logan felt something shift in his chest. He thought about the fire tower where they'd made their stand, about the mountain that had almost killed them both and somehow brought them together. Thought about taking that trauma and turning it into something useful, something that could help other people survive their own fires. You'd really do that? I'd really do that, if you want to be part of it. Logan looked at the empty lot where his old life used to be, then at Victoria, brilliant, damaged, determined Victoria, who'd survived a wildfire and a murder attempt, and was still trying to build something meaningful from the ashes. Yeah, he said, I want to be part of it. Oh, the Silverwood community took 2 years to build. Logan worked alongside Victoria and a team of architects and engineers, designing homes that were sustainable and affordable, creating spaces where families could grow and thrive. The Search and Rescue Center became his particular obsession, a state-of-the-art facility that trained responders from across the state and coordinated emergency operations for the entire region. Jamie loved it. He spent weekends exploring the construction sites, asking endless questions about building techniques and rescue equipment, making friends with the construction crews who treated him like their collective nephew. He thrived in the billing schools Victoria had helped him get into, joined the soccer team, and started talking about becoming an architect instead of a paleontologist. He also, slowly, started accepting Victoria as part of their family. It wasn't smooth. There were moments when Jamie pushed back, when he resented this woman who wasn't his mother but was taking up space in his father's life. There were fights and tears and difficult conversations about loyalty and love and whether it was possible to honor the past while building a future. But there were also good moments. Victoria teaching Jamie to play chess, Logan coming home to find them both asleep on the couch, a movie playing unwatched on TV. Jamie's 9th birthday party where Victoria organized a scavenger hunt that had kids running all over the community center and afterward quietly told Logan it was the most fun she'd had in years. Small moments that added up to something real. The legal proceedings against Marcus dragged on for 18 months. He tried every delay tactic, every appeal, every legal maneuver his expensive lawyers could devise. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding him guilty on all counts. Logan and Victoria were both in the courtroom for the sentencing. Marcus looked smaller somehow, diminished by prison clothes and the weight of his own choices. When the judge sentenced him to 25 years without possibility of parole, he showed no emotion, just stood there, defeated and empty. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed asking for comments. Victoria gave a brief statement about justice being served and her commitment to ensuring corporate accountability. Logan stayed silent, holding her hand and thought about how unsatisfying closure actually was. Marcus going to prison didn't bring back his house or undo the trauma or erase the fear. It just meant the threat was contained, the immediate danger passed. But maybe that was enough. The Silverwood community officially opened on a cold October morning, 3 years after the fire that had started everything. Logan stood with Victoria and Jamie watching families move into homes that had been designed with love and intention, watching kids run through green spaces and community gardens, watching a dream become reality. Cal Morrison showed up for the opening ceremony, older and grayer, but still carrying that world-weary competence that made him good at his job. He found Logan by the coffee station and handed him a newspaper. "Thought you'd want to see this, Sam," Cal said. It was a feature article about the Silverwood community, but also about Victoria and Logan, about how they'd met and what they'd built together. The writer had done their research, interviewing former board members and rescue workers and residents of the new community. The piece was honest about the violence and trauma that had brought them together, but also about what came after, the choice to build instead of destroy, to create instead of seeking revenge. "They're calling you two a success story," Cal said. "Inspiration porn for people who like their romance with a side of corporate intrigue." Logan laughed. "That's one way to put it. You happy, Hayes?" Logan looked across the community center where Victoria was talking to a young mother about the affordable housing program, where Jamie was showing a group of kids the rescue equipment on display. Looked at the mountains in the distance where fire had tried to take everything and somehow given him something worth fighting for instead. "Yeah," he said. "I'm happy. Terrified most of the time, convinced I'm screwing everything up, but happy." "Good. You deserve it." Cal clapped him on the shoulder. "Both of you do." That evening, after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Logan and Victoria sat on a bench overlooking the development. Jamie had gone home with Mrs. Chen, who'd become an unofficial grandmother figure and refused to miss any of the boys' activities, leaving them alone with the quiet. "I've been thinking," Victoria said, "about the future, about what comes next." Logan felt his stomach tighten. They'd been together for 3 years now, living in a careful balance between his world and hers, but they'd never really talked about permanence, never addressed the question of where this was going. "Yeah?" Victoria reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Logan's heart stopped. "Before you panic," she said quickly, "this isn't what you think it is, or maybe it is, but not in the traditional way." She opened the box. Inside were 2 keys on a simple key ring. "I bought a house," Victoria continued. "Not a penthouse or an investment property or something from my old life. A house. 3 bedrooms, big backyard, terrible plumbing that needs fixing. It's here in the community we built, and I want you and Jamie to live in it with me." Logan stared at the keys. "You want us to move in together?" "Well, what should we see?" "I want us to be a family, real and messy and permanent." Victoria's voice shook slightly. "I know it's scary. I know there are no guarantees. But Logan, these past 3 years with you have been the realest thing in my life. You and Jamie, you're my home. And I want to make that official." "What about your company? The penthouse? Your life in Billings?" "Sets. The company has good people running it. I can work remotely for most things, drive in for board meetings when needed. And the penthouse was never home. It was just where I slept between obligations." She took his hand. "But this place, this community, we built together, these people we're helping, this feels like purpose. Like I'm finally doing what I was supposed to do all along." Logan thought about the question Jamie had asked 3 years ago. "Can we build a new house?" Thought about Sarah and the life they'd had, about the grief he'd carried for so long, and the guilt of moving forward. Thought about Victoria and the unexpected gift of second chances, about how love didn't replace what was lost, but added something new and equally precious. "I need to ask Jamie," he said finally. "This affects him too." "Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way." "But the betrayal." They asked Jamie the next morning over breakfast. Logan had worried about how to phrase it, how to make sure his son knew he had a choice in this decision. But before he could stumble through his carefully prepared speech, Jamie looked at Victoria and asked the question that cut through all the complexity. "Would you be like my mom? Not replacing her, but being a mom anyway?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I could never replace your mom. She was special, and you should never forget her. But yes, I'd like to be a mom to you, if you want that." Jamie thought about this with the seriousness of a 9-year-old contemplating something that would change his entire life. Then he nodded. "Okay, but I get to help decorate my room. Deal." Just like that, it was settled. They moved into the house 2 months later, a chaotic process involving boxes and furniture, and Jamie's insistence on arranging his dinosaur collection in very specific order. Mrs. Chen helped, offering advice and homemade cookies, and occasionally tearing up when she thought no one was looking. The house wasn't perfect. The plumbing really was terrible. The heating system made strange noises at night, and there was a leak in the roof that Logan kept meaning to fix. But it was theirs, filled with laughter and arguments and homework struggles and family dinners where they talked about their days. Victoria officially stepped back from day-to-day operations at Hale Enterprises, keeping a board seat but letting younger, hungrier people run the company while she focused on the Silverwood community and a dozen other projects that mattered more than profit margins. She started a foundation focused on sustainable development and community building, funded scholarships for kids from low-income families, and discovered that giving away money strategically was harder and more satisfying than making it. Logan took over as director of the Regional Search and Rescue Center, training the next generation of responders, and occasionally still going out on calls when someone needed saving. He taught Jamie about the mountains, about respect for nature's power, and the responsibility that came with trying to help people in crisis. And sometimes, late at night when Jamie was asleep and the house was quiet, Logan and Victoria would sit on their back porch and look up at the mountains where it had all started, where fire had tried to destroy them and somehow forged something stronger instead. "Do you ever regret it?" Victoria asked one night. "That day on the mountain, running up there to save me? Everything that came after?" Logan thought about his burned house and the threats against Jamie, about the fear and violence and chaos that had consumed their lives for months. Thought about the comfortable predictability of his old life and how easy it would have been to stay in that safe grief instead of risking something new. No, he said honestly, not for a second. Even when it was hard? Especially when it was hard. The hard stuff is what made it real. Victoria leaned against him and Logan wrapped his arm around her shoulders the way he'd done 100 times before. The gesture had become familiar, comfortable, something neither of them had to think about anymore. "I love you," Victoria said quietly. "I don't think I've actually said that out loud before." "I love you too," Logan replied, and realized it was the first time he'd said those words to anyone since Sarah died. It felt both terrifying and right, like stepping off a cliff and discovering you could fly. They sat there under Montana stars while their son slept safely inside the home they'd built together. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way, and somehow made it work anyway. The mountains rose in the distance, dark shapes against the night sky, holding secrets and scars, and the memory of flames that had tried to consume them both. But fire, Logan had learned, didn't just destroy. Sometimes it cleared away the dead wood, made space for new growth, transformed landscapes in ways that were painful and necessary and ultimately beautiful. Sometimes you had to burn down to the foundation before you could build something worth keeping. He thought about the scared, grieving man he'd been 3 years ago, about the woman who'd ordered him to leave her on a burning mountain because she couldn't imagine being worth saving. Thought about how far they'd both come, how much they'd survived, how many times they could have quit and didn't. Life wasn't a rescue mission with a clear beginning and end. It was messy and complicated and full of moments where you had to choose between safety and significance, between protecting what you had and risking it for something more. There were no guarantees, no promises that everything would work out. But there was this, a hand to hold in the darkness, a home full of imperfect love, a purpose built from ashes and determination and the stubborn refusal to let fear win. There was Jamie growing up brave and kind, Victoria finding herself again in community instead of empire, Logan learning that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past. There was the mountain at dawn when the smoke finally cleared, when survival became not just making it through, but choosing what to build next. And in the end, maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Inside the house, a light flickered on, Jamie probably, getting water or checking that they were still there. Logan smiled, recognizing his son's need for reassurance even 3 years after the threats had ended. Some scars took time to heal. "We should go in," Victoria said. "Make sure he's okay." "Yeah, just say it." But they sat for another moment, holding on to the quiet, both of them knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and uncertainties. The company would need attention. The community would have problems that needed solving. Jamie would have questions about his place in this rebuilt family. Life would continue being complicated and difficult and real, and they would face it together, the way they'd faced the fire, one step at a time, refusing to quit, choosing each other even when it would be easier not to. Logan stood and helped Victoria to her feet, her ankle still sometimes bothering her on cold nights, a permanent reminder of the mountain and everything that came after. They walked inside together, into the house they'd filled with possibility and hope, where Jamie waited with questions about bad dreams and reassurances that his family was still intact. "We're here," Logan told his son, pulling him into a hug that Victoria joined without hesitation. "We're all here, and we're not going anywhere." It was a promise he intended to keep, not because the future was certain or because they'd solved all their problems, but because some things were worth fighting for through every fire life decided to throw your way. Some people were worth running into the flames to save, even when everyone else said to run the other direction. And some love stories started on burning mountains and ended in houses full of laughter and leaky roofs and the beautiful, imperfect work of building something that mattered from the wreckage of everything that tried to destroy you. This was theirs, hard-won and messy and absolutely real, and it was enough.